Welcome to Food Friends, a podcast inspiring home cooks to try new dishes in the kitchen by sharing trusted recipes, tips, and friendship. Hi, I'm Sonia.
And I'm Carrie. We met in Los Angeles over 15 years ago as personal chefs and haven't stopped talking about food since. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Sonia.
Carrie, 200 episodes.
Sonia, I can't believe we made 200 episodes of this podcast.
I can't believe I've done 200 of anything.
So true.
I mean, there's so much to say. I try not to get too emotional, but this has been such a joy. It's been one of the most fun projects, unexpected projects that I've ever been a part of.
We've always talked about food this way, but when you moved outside of Los Angeles, this is something that has really tethered us together. We actually do cook all the recipes that we talk about, and we get to connect every week and talk about what we're cooking and share with each other. It really keeps our friendship alive.
And then to be able to share recipes that we're discovering with so many new food friends, I just want to thank each and every one of you who's ever reached out, who's ever sent us a DM, an email, a review, a comment. Every single one of them is meaningful to both of us.
Absolutely. And I think even if you've thought about sending that and you haven't, I'll also say thank you. I know there's a lot more of you out there that have not reached out to us, but who tune in every week. And I think the other part that's very unexpected for me is a lot of our listeners are sending us recipes now and sharing their ideas with us. And that's also really affecting the way that I cook in a really great way.
Yeah, same. I mean, there's no way any one person can know everything about food. There's no any one way everyone can make every recipe on earth. We need each other. We need to be sharing. And we're so excited that so many of you do share with us and share with each other. We're seeing other food friendships form, and we only hope to continue to grow and connect and find more ways to do that. I just want to give a little context. We've talked about it before, but I think some people may not know how this all started, only in the briefest way, in that we were friends and we really did share recipes, yes. But what happened was, during the pandemic, I lost my business. And afterwards, I was really trying to find ways both that I could share food in new ways without having a physical space anymore. And I was looking for things that would bring me joy, to be honest. And that was it. And one day on a walk, I remember it clear as day. I remember exactly where I was when this happened. I just had this idea, and I think this is how ideas come to people. Personally, this is what I believe. I just had this idea, came in. It was like, you need to start a podcast. You need to do it with Carrie, and you should call it Food Friends. And I left you a voice message within minutes of feeling that. And to be honest, right, you weren't immediately sold on the idea.
I wasn't immediately sold because I was a little unsure of putting my voice out into the world in that way. I very much love talking to you about food, and I love cooking in my own kitchen. But I think that's something that you've really helped me see is the value of the wealth of information I've built up over the years of being a personal chef and being a home cook, and the way that I taught myself how to cook, it can help other people learn how to cook too.
And I think it was, why did you come to me and not any of my other food friends on the planet? Because certainly we both have other food friends, which all people should. But it was because of the way that you find recipes. And that every recipe that you ever sent to me was one that I fell in love with and start to incorporate into my practice regularly. And I don't think anyone outside of my grandmother has influenced my cooking as much. So it was very clear to me that I was like, wow, I wish other people could find recipes that work. Also, wouldn't it be fun to have a project with Carrie? We had tried to have a business years ago in LA, and then I moved. This is a fun thing to collaborate. And the start of this was really just that. It was like, can I have a fun project that connects me to food that could potentially be helpful to other people and that lets me have fun with Carrie? Because once I moved away, it was harder and harder for us to find time to spend together. That was just life that happens when you move to a new city. So that was the impetus of this. And we spent 6 months recording before we ever released a single
We did.
episode.
We did. I mean, I'm going to stop you because what you just said was so meaningful to me that I've influenced your cooking in the universe that your grandmother influenced your cooking. I think that is such a meaningful thing to say. And I think we just have this genuine shared love of food. And because of our time that we've worked together, both on retreats and on food styling projects, we've just built up this friendship and rapport with each other. And I think our biggest strength is actually that we're incredibly different
Yes.
and that and I think what you have really offered me is permission to really love a lot of the recipes and foods from my childhood as well. Because when I came to Los Angeles, like people don't really eat Midwestern food, and certainly in the clientele that I worked with. And sharing those pieces of myself were really sometimes hard, sometimes difficult. And I think through this process, I've really been able to go back and love a lot of the foods from my childhood and see such a value in them, but really through your eyes first. And I think that's what a really good friend does for you, is they really show you the parts of yourself that you're really not sure that you want to share with the rest of the world, you know?
Someone just recently commented on one of our posts. One of our listeners on Instagram commented that when we were talking about how we store and organize our recipes, that it made them feel like they had permission to do whatever worked best for them. And I think we all need that reminder. And It's something I've been really grateful for in our friendship, is to just be proud of what works for you personally, your own taste, your own stories, your own background. And can we have more of that? I think that's important right now for all of us, to feel that sense of permission to be ourselves, to love what we love, to not be ashamed of our backgrounds and our tastes and our preferences. And I feel like our conversations always remind me of that.
Yeah, one of the most basic things is kind of getting out of your own head. And
Yeah.
when you are friends with someone who you really trust to share those parts of yourself, and that gets reflected back to you in a joyful way, the way that you joyfully celebrate monster cookies or SpaghettiOs or some of these things that I've talked about. And the same thing with you. It's like I cook so many recipes from your childhood that now are my child's favorite foods. I mean, that to me that's life-changing.
I really feel that. Well, we could get real teary here. So I'm
Totally.
gonna, for the sake of everyone, part of what we want to talk about today is the recipes from the past 200 episodes that we go back to over and over and over again, that have become the true staples winners in our life. We're just reflecting. There were some that aren't even going to make the list that are definitely part of my regular repertoire,
Yes.
but I'm really thinking of like the best of the best and the ones that I would not have discovered if it wasn't for you, or if it wasn't for this podcast with listeners, with other feedback, or in the process of trying new things. So I have to start with, and this is under the category of recipes Carrie brought into my life that I would never have A, found, B, thought to try. And this is actually, I think, maybe was even the start of the whole podcast, of realizing I need to start a podcast with Carrie, because I'm pretty sure this first recipe you shared with me before we had our podcast. And it was a recipe from the New York Times for farro and cauliflower parm by Sarah De Gregorio. I truly never would have tried this recipe. There's no chance. I actually am much less of a recipe tester and follower, which is weird because I develop recipes all the time for clients and I write them all the time. But in my own cooking, I tend to be much more free and abstract, and I'm not often like sitting down and following a recipe. But you told me about a dinner party or something where you made this and how good it was, and you were so excited about it. And I was like, wow, I need to try this thing that Carrie's so excited about.
Well, Sonia, the irony is that I found this recipe because of our shared love of cauliflower parmesan and eggplant parmesan. And we started cooking those together on these retreats. And we first started with the eggplant parmesan because that was what was in season when we started the first retreat. But then on the second retreat, it was the winter. And so cauliflower was available. We made these sheet pan eggplant parmesans and sheet pan cauliflower parmesans. And I think I was chasing that memory. And so when I saw this recipe, I was like, ooh, and farro, something that Sonia and I both really like. And so I tried the recipe. It was this geniusly simple, the sum of which was the greater than the parts. I just couldn't believe how delicious it was. And it was also vegetarian, which is Something that I have definitely become more of in my older age, but when I was growing up, we only ate meat and potatoes. And I think our friendship gave me permission to really love a lot of vegetarian food, whole grains like farro and brown rice. And I've learned how to cook those foods better because of you. And so this is so cyclical, right?
I did not know that. Well, we've talked about this recipe so many times and
Yes.
OG listeners will know it very well. Just to remind new listeners, it's basically you take a bunch of raw cauliflower, you take a bunch of uncooked farro, you combine it with pre-made marinara, and then you top it with mozzarella and some breadcrumbs, and it's a glorified casserole, but it tastes like the best pizza, the best parm. It has all the meatiness from the cauliflower and the hardiness from the grains and that
But no
nuttiness,
meat.
but
Yeah.
no meat.
Yeah.
It reheats well, it freezes well. It's a great meal if you want to gift it to someone who's had a new baby or just needs some support and extra meals. It's fantastic. So that I have to start with. The second one might surprise you. The second recipe that gets so high up on my list is broccoli spoon salad.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, by Sola, also from the New York Times. We'll link unlocked versions so you can access them. So, this broccoli spoon salad you cooked at a retreat. You came back to the podcast. You told me about the retreat that you had cooked, that you'd made this broccoli spoon salad, that you put them into mason jars, that you sent people home with them. It's such a Carrie thing to do, to be like, I'm not just going to cook for the retreat. I'm going to cook for their drive back home. I'm going to put it in a beautiful mason jar and they're going to love it. It's just like very Carrie. And I didn't really make a lot of broccoli salads because I don't always love raw broccoli, but everything about the salad is genius. It's something Jonathan asks me to make regularly. It has broccoli, apples, nuts, currants or cranberries or cherries.
Dried sour cherries,
dried
which
sour
always
cherries.
reminds me of you. I totally found this recipe. I was looking for recipes for this retreat and also lamenting the fact that I was doing a retreat alone and not with you. I found this recipe and I was like, oh, this is something. It has cherries in it. It has quinoa. You made your quinoa cakes. Like, I always think about that too. And so, again, this is a recipe I found because it reminded me of you and it reminded me of our time together in the kitchen. And so
Well, who knew?
when I made it, I was like, oh, I have to tell her how great this was. People really loved it. And I also loved it too because I also made the little container for my drive home as well.
It also has cube cheddar cheese, which is such a nice
Yes.
ingredient. It feels like a complete meal in salad form. Definitely in my top three. And the last one, also, to be honest, you shared with me before the podcast, but it's come up several times on the podcast. So I feel like it deserves to be included in this list. And it's blueberry pudding cake, which
Oh my gosh.
is something you made at one of the retreats, these formative retreats. I'm pretty sure, right? Did you make it then? Or am I imagining it? No,
I
it
don't
could have
know
been
if I
for
made
catering.
it might have been for catering,
It
but
might
it
have been
was
for catering.
it was a recipe I cooked for my very, very first client. And way back when I first started, and then I shared it with you, and it's a genius recipe.
It's so simple. This is a cake recipe for people who don't even know how to bake. Like, it's
Oh yeah.
so beginner friendly. And that's also appealing to non-beginners because sometimes you need a quick dessert. I cooked this once at a place where I was volunteering, where I was making meals. We needed dessert desperately that day. I was like, oh, I know something that can happen really fast. It's one of those. So it's just cooking down some blueberries and making the simplest of batters with no special equipment needed. And then you put the batter in the casserole dish or the cake pan, and then you top it with that blueberries that you just quickly cooked until they just start to make a sauce.
And you swirl it just a
Yeah.
little bit. Like
You
it
swirl it
makes this
just a
beautiful
little.
swirl. Yeah.
And then the cake rises above the blueberries. And it's the kind of cake you could even serve for breakfast. It's so
I
blueberry
have served
centric.
it for breakfast for sure.
Yeah, it's that kind of cake. It's an all day friendly cake. Nice enough for dinner, not too sweet, good enough for breakfast. It's truly become a staple in my life. And I have to say, you could make it with other berries. I've made it with berries besides blueberries. However, I do think it's best with the blueberries.
I do think it's best with the blueberries too, but I have made the other versions. There's a lemon one and there's a strawberry one. The blueberry one is the best for sure.
So, Carrie, what are your top three recipes from 200 episodes of Food Friends?
Sonia, I have to start with salad. There's one salad in particular that I make because of you, but I just make so many more salads because of you, because you're such an excellent salad maker and you have taught me so much about the texture of salad. You were the person who convinced me to buy a mandolin. And when I bought my mandolin, my salads immediately got so much better. But the rainbow salad that you make, it's so you. It's so like the joy of different vegetables, the joy of cutting them differently and laying them out in this beautiful way and serving it at the table and tossing it all together. But that salad also changed my life because it made my son love salad.
It's one of the greatest honors. I wish everyone could meet your son, Mac, who is truly one of the most special human beings I've ever met.
Oh,
I
thank
don't think
you.
people know, and I credit you with a lot of this. Obviously, there's the qualities that are unique to Mac that have been there since the day he was born, but he also had one of the most incredible sets of parents a kid could ask
Oh,
for.
thank
And
you.
Mac is just the kindest, sweetest, most thoughtful, considerate. I'm just always blown away at how much he cares for nature and the people around him. If you're playing a game with him, he doesn't want you to lose. He's just a very conscientious human. The fact that I can bring salads in any way, shape, or form more into Mac's life, it touches me so much.
Well, what's amazing about the rainbow salad itself is so great, and it really launched us into trying more salads. Since we started releasing salads every week on our Substack, I also am trying those salads too, especially the ones that you're making. He really loved that kale salad that you made with like spring strawberries and mint. And I actually made that salad. We didn't have spring strawberries by the time it came out. We already had like very summery sweet strawberries, but we had spring peaches and they were a little bit tart and tangy. And he ate that salad. And also, one of his friends came over and had a big bowl of that salad. So,
Wow.
your salad making capabilities have really benefited my household. I really learned how to make a salad delicious because of you.
I still think your salads were delicious before me, and I had the pleasure of having them multiple times, but thank you. I know what you mean, though. I know for you, salads weren't like your focus or your primary concern. You still made them well, but it seems like you've really taken off on your own now, and you're creating salads I wouldn't even think to make in the best possible way. So I love that this is one of the outcomes of our conversations.
Absolutely. So, the next recipe of yours that I cook all the time in my house is your turkey chili. At this point now, it's become my turkey chili. My son doesn't think of it as your turkey chili anymore
You
because we've made
shouldn't.
it we've made it so many times. And I do generally remind him and say like, "Hey, remember, this is your Auntie Sonia's turkey chili." But what is special about a turkey chili? I don't think that I ever made a turkey chili before I had this conversation with you on our podcast. And it was the way that you described it. It was like, it's such a classic turkey chili. It's so comforting. You've really helped me learn how to love beans so much more than I even did before I met you. It's one of those delicious dishes that kind of works any time of year, but especially in the winter.
Yeah. I mean, it is my go-to chili. I like to think, though, at some point a recipe becomes that person's. It's very nice to be credited. No one's mad at that. But when you make it enough, it becomes yours and you make your own little changes and your own little additions. And that's the point of a recipe. There's
Right.
no way it would taste, even if you and I did exactly the same things, it would taste different. And that's what I love about cooking. It's so deeply personal.
Every time I cook it, I also think of you because that's where it came from. When you get a recipe from someone else or you shared a recipe with one of your friends, it brings something extra into your kitchen when you're cooking. It's not just about cooking to get dinner on the table, which that's a part of the process too, right? Food
Yeah,
into your
we all got to
belly.
do it.
We all
Yeah.
have to do it and we have to do it multiple times a day, but it just adds more deliciousness to your table. So, Sonia, the other way that you've really benefited my home cooking is that you helped me love my slow cooker again. And I received a slow cooker when I graduated from college. My parents gave me a slow cooker because that was something that we
Great
used a
gift.
lot. Yeah, a great gift. And I really didn't use it for a very long time. Recently, you shared a couple of things on our podcast that I now make all the time in my slow cooker. One, I make apple butter in my slow cooker. It is literally the easiest thing ever. Just like chop up a bunch of apples and you let them cook for many hours, and it turns into this luscious, delicious butter that freezes really well. I've shared with friends. I've put
You
into
don't even need
pastries.
sugar. You don't even need to peel your
No,
apples. It's the
no.
easiest thing in the world.
And it just kind of bubbles away while you're doing other things like watching TV or doing your laundry or sleeping even. And the other thing that you taught me how to make in a slow cooker is caramelized onions. And that has helped my process of making tomato soup, which really makes my son happy. He loves my tomato soup. But caramelizing all those onions for tomato soup is kind of a pain. And so now that I know I can do it in my slow cooker, I'm so happy to be asked to make tomato soup anytime. And I wouldn't have sought out those recipes if it had not been for you.
This is the whole point of these conversations. And I have to say, your tomato soup is one of the best tomato soups on the planet. I remember when you taught it to me, and the secret is a tremendous amount of caramelized onions at the base. But as you just explained, that takes a long time.
Yeah.
At least 45 minutes,
At least.
usually an hour, and an hour of constant attention. Whereas in a slow cooker, you can set it and forget it. It will take longer, but you're doing zero monitoring. And then your caramelized onions are done. And then you can freeze them. You can use them in sauces. You can use them in frittatas, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it's clear that both of us cook more things and cook differently because of these conversations. I also have to give an honorable mention to one of the tips that you taught me really early on. So in episode 14, I had to go look, when was this? We did an episode all about our freezers, which P.S. We will probably do a new episode about that at some point because we use our freezers a lot.
Yeah.
And in that episode, you dropped this bombshell, which is that you freeze your bagels in a very specific way, which is you slice them and then you turn them so that the slices face outward. So like the top and the bottom touch each other so that when you pull them out of the freezer, they're not stuck together. The mind blown emoji is the only thing I can put here. And I have to tell you how many of my friends reached out and was like, how did we never know this? And these were in particular Jewish friends because we ate a lot of bagels. And they're like, how did no one tell us that this is how we should be freezing our bagels? It was a game changer for me.
I'm so thrilled to know that I could share that tip with you. I have to say that my mind blown emoji comes from our very first episode where we talked about chocolate chip cookies, which is something that I think everyone loves, which is why we started with that. You revealed so many ideas about cookies and about yourself that I had no idea about. But the biggest bomb that you dropped in that episode was that you don't use chocolate chips in your cookies, that you cut up bars of chocolate. And the reason that you do that is because there are emulsifiers in chocolate chips that keep them in that shape. And so if you just use a chocolate bar, it will melt differently in your chocolate chip cookie. That tip alone has changed the way that I make chocolate chip cookies. Even if I use the basic Toll House recipe, it makes them like a bakery cookie instead of just like a Toll House cookie recipe.
I love that. I do think it makes such a difference. I also recommend the chocolate discs, which are not to be
yes.
confused with chips. Those are harder to find. You have to find them at specialty baking stores or restaurant supply stores. You and I both like the Pound Plus Belgian chocolate from Trader Joe's. And I do use that in my cookies, especially for the milk chocolate. But yeah, there's all these things we discovered even after over 15 years of friendship that we're still learning. There's this category of recipes that I think we should quickly address, which is recipes we've discovered in this process of doing this show, which means we're always on the hunt for new dishes. You and I are both always researching. We're getting new cookbooks. We're going through our cookbook collections because we also get stuck in ruts and need new ideas. And so there's some recipes that really have come out of this show, either through both of us or through a guest. And I just want to shout out a few. I want to start with the tarragon soup. The tarragon soup is a recipe by Olia Hercules, who is an incredible UK-based chef, but she's Ukrainian. And this is in her book, actually, about Georgian cooking called Caucasus. And in that book, she had this recipe for tarragon soup. I don't think I would have tried it had we not been doing this podcast and not been writing about soups every week, and talking about soups. And so this soup is now truly one of my all-time favorite soups. It's one of the first soups I make during soup season when the weather gets chilly. And the real revelation of the soup is that she adds these peppers to it. She has red and green, but you could do any combination. And those peppers added so much flavor to a kind of basic vegetable and rice soup.
Yeah.
And that tarragon, which I just love tarragon, it was a revelation.
Well, I also make this soup now because you brought it to our podcast. And you're right, there is something about the addition of these peppers. It's one of the things that we've actually talked about a lot when we've talked about recipes and what their names are. I'm going to make a tarragon soup. Does not sound sexy or fun at all to me. I'm like, I need like a little bit more marketing. This very simply named soup is so much better than what you imagine it to be. And it's because of the process that she uses. There's also a lot of butter in this soup, which makes it really delicious.
Right. It does make it delicious.
There's a lot of butter, but it's a vegetable-based soup, and so much of the flavor of the soup comes from the vegetables. I don't know that I ever used tarragon before I met you. And this soup has a ton of tarragon at the end, but you remember you take it off the stove and then you add all the tarragon to it. And it's sort of like jet.
Well, it perfumes it. And when you overcook an herb, it loses some of that pungency. And the way the tarragon just fills the bowl with its kind of licoricey, beautiful flavor, it's exquisite.
Yeah. My family loves this soup too. It's not just me. So, Sonia, one of the recipes that I now make every single week in my kitchen is Adrienne Hale's sourdough bread recipe. This actually first appeared when we started sharing our best bites, and you had gone to her house and had dinner, and she made these sourdough pitas. And I just remember thinking, like, who makes sourdough pita at their house? That seems so crazy to me. And then I have now become a person who makes sourdough bread and sourdough pita thanks to Adrienne's recipe.
Adrienne also came on our show and shared about this recipe. We'll link that episode too. Also, just a shout out, if you ever want an in-person experience with Adrienne, she teaches sourdough baking classes here in Portland and then does a bread tour of the city while the dough is rising. It's an incredible experience, so I'll link that too. Adrienne has been one of our biggest supporters and biggest fans. But she's also, in her own right, an incredible recipe developer and an incredible food friend. And this recipe is one of those genius recipes. But the joy I get from the fact that two of my closest friends are connected by this bread, because I bake challah more than sourdough. The fact that you are regularly baking it, sharing it with everyone in your community, feeding it to people after the LA fires, all the things that have happened with this recipe, it just shows how important these friendships, connections, and the sharings of recipes really are.
For what it's worth, and I have never met. We've never met in person. Bringing her into my kitchen each week with this beautiful recipe, it is what empowered me to get back into sourdough after the pandemic. I was making sourdough in the pandemic, and when the world kind of returned to normal, I just didn't have the time or the bandwidth to do it. And our family really missed that bread experience. It really has empowered me. And I have shared this bread with many of my friends. I've made it for dinner parties. I've made it for sick friends. I make this bread every week. I slice it and put it in the freezer. And I never would have gotten back to it had you not shared about how delicious these pitas were and then how easy this bread is when she came on and talked about it.
Yeah, again, we need all the food friends. And speaking of food friends, there's one other that appeared in, I think, our second episode ever.
Yeah.
Which was about the life-changing frittata, which was made by my friend and local Portland chef, Lauren Chandler. Lauren also offers cooking classes that are outstanding. She does them privately, but she also does them for big groups and for corporations or nonprofits. She's a really amazing teacher, and she asked me to help her out on a retreat when we were just starting out, and she made this frittata for breakfast. I always found frittatas largely fine. They were
like
okay.
Utilitarian.
Yeah.
Like they sort of serve a purpose. Having a breakfast or we're having a brunch, we need some kind of protein. We need to cook eggs.
And it's easy to bake eggs.
Yes.
You could throw some asparagus in there and that's nice. You could put some hot sauce on it and that's nice. But on its own, and I just remember every single person at this retreat being like, what is this?
Yes. I remember you sharing that piece where you said, like, I kept hearing people say, what is this? Like the way that you described the experience of how people were experiencing the frittata made me want to make it.
Yeah. And Lauren really thankfully shared her tips. She didn't follow an exact recipe, but we link one that's closest to it. But her main thing, it's a Carrie thing. It's my grandmother did it. It's all of us do it. The foundation of her frittata was a tremendous amount of caramelized onion. There were some other details. It's worth checking out the episode to find out all of them, but it includes heavy cream, really good cheese. Like there are things that just make things taste better. And I think she added a bunch of tarragon too and fresh
She
herbs.
added a ton of, yes, there's a ton of
Yes.
tarragon
I
in
guess
hers too. Yeah.
I guess there's a theme going on. But anyway, that frittata changed my ideas of frittatas. You learn so much from your friends.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Sonia, you have always been much more of a baker than I have been. And we recently had Nicole Rucker, who released a cookbook called Fat and Flour. She has a couple of bakeries here in Los Angeles called Fat and Flour. I've had her pie, but when we got her cookbook, you called me offline and said, Carrie, you don't even understand. This is the most life-changing pie dough recipe ever because it takes all the guesswork out of it and it's very precise and it makes like the most incredible pie dough. And the way that you described her pie dough to me and then our conversation with her has turned me into a pie maker.
You're making more pies than I am. You were like, I made 4 pies this week. I'm like, who are you? I mean, I don't ever have this experience where I'm reading a recipe and jump out of my chair.
Yeah.
Because usually all pie recipes are variations on a theme, and there's one subtle trick or tip that moves the needle forward. This is a paradigm shifting recipe.
Yeah.
I have made this recipe a dozen times since she's been on our show, since I first read it. I use my own pie dough recipe, but with her technique now. I mean, they're pretty similar, so it's not even that different. The technique is really what this is about. This is worth checking out from your local library, grabbing a copy. This is an important baking book, and it's not just the pie. Highly recommend check out the cookie section. She has a game-changing method for cookies. She has 5 different banana bread recipes in there. We don't get a commission on her book. We just genuinely love this recipe.
I now use her pie dough to make your crostadas. What you get from your food friends is a little bit of extra boost of confidence when you need it in the kitchen.
It's so true. And we'd also just like to thank all of you again, whether you've reached out, whether you haven't. We really couldn't keep doing this without you. It's a lot of work. We're not going to lie. Carrie and I have done this fully independently from day one. We don't have a studio. We've never had a big sponsor. So this has been a labor of love. And part of what's kept us going is the amount of you who are listening and just this connection that's happening. So we just want to take a moment to read a few of the reader messages. We read every single one. We care about every single one. And the ones that are reviews on Apple in particular, they really help us grow. It's the most meaningful thing. Those 5-star reviews help us reach even more food friends. So if you've taken the time to do that, we just want to thank you one more time. I want to read a couple of them. I want you to read a couple of them.
Yeah.
I think they're really special. This one is from Mojo Kitchen, and it's titled Inspiration in the Kitchen. Love this podcast. I listen each week because these ladies inspire me to try new recipes in the kitchen. Plus, there are always helpful tips too. The friendship between Sonia and Carrie is so sweet, and I just love the way they describe what they are cooking and the different ways to make it delicious. The quick episodes are my fave because it's a boost of joy in my day. Thank you,
That's
because we
so
also,
lovely.
it's so lovely. And when we first started releasing our best bites of the week or our shorter episodes, we weren't sure if people would enjoy them. So hearing that really kept us going.
Sonia, I have another one. It's called Friends in Your Pocket. Sonia and Carrie are the best. I listen on Sundays when I'm meal prepping for the week, and it's like they're in the kitchen with me. I half expect them to comment on what I'm making. They each have their own unique perspectives, and it's so fun to listen to them discuss the smallest details. The episodes are about stuff that is interesting but also practical. Their conversation has a solid flow and an easygoing vibe. My go-to listen when I'm in a Zen cooking mode and want to explore something new.
How beautiful.
So beautiful.
What a great writer, too.
Yes.
And here's just another one. This is sent to us in an email. I won't read the whole email, but I have to read an excerpt because it was so moving. It's from Roy Lambert, who we mentioned recently on our recipe organization episode. The first time he wrote us, he wrote, "Hi, Carrie and Sonia. I discovered your podcast about a month ago. I love it. It's now one of my primary podcasts. I'm a 78-year-old guy who has been the primary cook in my house since the Food Network intrigued me about cooking."
And just for a little bit more context, Roy sends us at least 2 or 3 recipes a week. And it is amazing what this man is cooking in his kitchen. And it's inspiring me. It's like getting another one of you. Roy has all these great ideas for us.
We love hearing from you, Roy. Never stop sending us recipes.
So, Sonia, I have one last one from Frida890. Made the gnocchi and Brussels sprout recipe after hearing about it on the Best Bites episode, and it was delicious. Carrie and Sonia are so knowledgeable on so many different types of cuisines and methods of cooking. They give great advice on how to modify recipes to fit what you have in your kitchen. This is my new go-to podcast when I'm looking for new cooking ideas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to end on a very sweet note that we got through our Substack from Fran P. When you talk with each other, it's easy to hear the great regard you share. That alone is worth the listen, not to mention the recipes.
Oh,
I mean,
Fran, that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. And that's another way that people can interact with us. We have a Substack. We link all of the recipes that we talk about in our show notes, but we also send them out in a Substack each week. And we also release a new recipe every week.
You can find that at foodfriendspodcast.substack.com. You can also always find us on Instagram at foodfriendspod. And you can find our website, foodfriendspodcast.com, and send us a note from there as well. There's lots of ways to get in touch. We respond to every message. We love being in touch with all of you. We love hearing your hotline questions. That's another way to reach out to us. Give us a call. We are just thrilled to be in this community and can't wait to keep creating more episodes.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for being a part of our 200th episode.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being our food friend.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with friends. We love hearing from you, so follow us on Instagram or drop us a line at foodfriendspodcast.com.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you and your food friends. Happy cooking and eating.